Hello everyone, how's it going? It's another one of those videos. So the last video I did something like this was for The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. In today's episode of this book series I Can't Get Out of My Head, I will be discussing the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. AKA, this is sort of the first extension, the first of many trilogies set in the realm of the Elderlings. So the first part of this video, I will be pretty much discussing about this book series overall as a whole. I will be talking about spoilers towards the end. Overall, I'm just telling you guys my feels so that you guys will eventually pick the series up based on my recommendation because it's fucking amazing. So I'm just gonna leave this out here that this series walked so that other fantasy series could run. That to me is the 100% truth that I live by because it has owned my mind, my heart, and my soul. The characters, the writing, everything about it was just fucking phenomenal and in the best way possible. Perhaps one of the best fantasy series that I have ever read. So the first book is Assassin's Apprentice, followed by Royal Assassin, and concluding with Assassin's Quest. Robin Hobb, man, the first book came out in 1995, I believe. Each consecutive book she has written has come out every year after that. One book per year. I don't know what to tell you, but most authors these days that I read from, they take like years, a couple of years to say in the least at that to come out with a new book. I mean, they can take their time. I'm not saying anything bad about that. Miss Robin Hobb has written every year 600 plus pages of a fantasy book series, and without a doubt has released each of them every year. That to me is so fucking impressive. And she has not written not one, not two, not three, but I believe 4 trilogies and a quartet series. I just know that there are around 30 books in this whole series overall. That may sound like a lot, and that may sound daunting, but let me tell you, I'm invested. I'm already here. I've only read three of those books, and I'm here for this world. I'm here for the characters. So let me tell you what the series is about. So essentially, we're following our main character, Fitz. It's really funny because in this world, some of the characters are named after certain attributes. So Fitz is solely named because Fitz means son of, and he's a bastard. They literally gave him that name because of what he is, the concept of it all. Like the king in here, his name is King Shrewd. Shrewd because he is supposedly super intelligent and smart. You know, there's another character named Regal because of the regalness that he possesses. And there's another character named Verity, and so on and so forth. You get the gesture, right? We follow our main character, Fitz, who is the bastard of one of the kings in waiting in this world. And so he is taken to this keep where he is basically turned aside from basically the royal family itself. He is basically politely shunned away from sort of like the political family of it all, sort of raised separately from the royal family themselves. And so throughout the course of the novel, he is essentially trained to be this royal assassin, to be useful one day for the king. And sort of the main problem, this discourse that this book goes through, is that this continent is being raided and plundered by outside forces from these raiders. What these raiders do to these people is that they don't exactly steal anything, but they take townspeople and people of the land and basically strip them of their humanity, turning them into sort of like zombie state-like figures who are known as the Forged Ones. Throughout the course of the series, this trilogy, we are following Fitz as an assassin trying to stay alive from everything that is thrown at him, all the dangers, political intrigue in the courts, and the Forged Ones, trying to figure out who he is as a person, while also trying to save certain key players in trying to save the kingdom. That is sort of the preliminary gist of what this whole series is about. I don't think I did a really good job explaining it, but so the few reasons why I love the series as is one, the writing. The writing is so fucking fantastic. There's a certain prose that Robin Hobb has crafted, and she has talent. Let me tell you, I've read a few decent, good fantasy series before, and honestly, none of them have come close to sort of the feelings, the prose, the technicality of her writing. Like literally, she is the master of her own making. Like no one comes even close. The fact that she is so well written and writes 600 plus pages of a fantasy book and delivers them out each and every year is just astounding to me. The story itself, I want to say, is sort of the weaker points of the book. So in book 1, you're sort of like stuck in this one location, and in this world, there are 6 duchies, essentially 6 different towns and places that make up this entire kingdom. And we are basically constrained to one duchy, Buckkeep, for the majority of the first book. Basically, we are in Fitz's POV. We see him as a wee babe, a small child in the first book, growing up into adolescence. In the second book, we are with him as sort of like a teenager growing up into a man. And in the third one, he is a full-grown fledgling, a bird with his wings ready to fly, except they do get clipped. So, what was I saying before? Where was it? This whole review will be a mess in a nutshell. I literally didn't write anything down. I'm purely going off based on my emotions and everything that is in here. So you are definitely in it for the long ride. So as I was saying, you're basically stuck with Fitz in first person narrative, and you're viewing the world through his lens. And in the first book, he was so cute and adorable to read from. You're literally reading from his perspective as a toddler growing up in the first book into this really innocent and charming little boy, and then he goes into like sort of like a teenager, pubescent age, you know, reaching maturity and all that, and he does make dumb decisions. Okay, but who doesn't make dumb decisions when they're a teenager, right? That's understandable, relatable, and forgivable, but when he reaches into adulthood as a man, let me just say, oh my god, I have never wanted to bitch slap anyone so hard in my entire life as I did reading about Fitz in the third book. I'll save that for the spoiler discussion. But to me, one of the best things about the series that Robin Hobb tackles is dealing with grief and trauma, and how she wrote these characters dealing and struggling with their trauma. It was just so realistic and humane and beautiful to read in a way. The way she would tackle and write and integrate certain themes overall, I think, were the strongest aspect of the series for me. It was just... You'll get it once you read it, okay? So I also want to talk briefly about the magic system in this book. It's very subtle. The magic in here isn't as explosive or the forefront than I thought it would be, because everything about it, even after the third book, is sort of surrounded and shrouded in mystery for me. I think we'll get more explanation, more glimpses of this magic system later on in the books, and I'm okay with that. So in this book, there is magic, but there are elements to this magic. So there's something called the skill, which is essentially sort of like a telepathy sort of connection that one might have, and maybe nudging or tweaking their emotions to do one's will or something like that, right? There's something called the wit, which is essentially where one makes that connection with an animal and sort of communicate and sort of bond with each other in some way. And so Fitz, our main character, sort of has these attributes and qualities of having both the skill and the wits. What I also really love about this is our main character Fitz. He is not the strongest or the brightest character, you know? He is not the best assassin either. Literally, the only thing that makes him stand apart from everyone with his magic is that he also owns the wits, the ability to communicate with animals. He's literally so fucking frustrated to read from sometimes because the way he thinks, like, granted, he doesn't have to be the smartest character ever, right? But there are so many instances in this book where he does and says something that is the total opposite of what he's actually doing. For example, like in the third book, he's on this quest to go somewhere and he meets all these characters, right? Who tell him more about, you know, a certain mythology or a certain secret, or maybe this is happening because of that, or this creature is that. And he's like,
Shh, I have no time for folly. Like, I have no time for child bedtime stories. I don't believe that. That can't be true.
and I'm like, bitch, shut the fuck up. You literally could talk with animals, okay? Like, and you were actually on this quest to do so and so. The way he is so naive sometimes, like, I get it, okay? He can't be perfect. However, him being so close-minded off sometimes was so frustrating to read from. Like, honestly, we are literally following a side character of a major fantasy series with all these powerful figures revolving and rotating around him. And honestly, that was a really interesting aspect to read from. However, also really frustrating as well. In the first and second book, he doesn't say some things that are like also stupid and dumb, but you sort of like understand, empathize, and sympathize with him because you can sort of relate to him as going through those stages growing up as a character. However, as a man, I'm just like, literally, some of the animals you talk to and bond with, they're just 100% smarter than you, okay? I'm just saying. I'm just gonna leave it at that, at the non-spoilery things. There are so many characters in this book that I admire and love. The Fool, for one, Nightshade, oh my god. Like, honestly, they carried the majority of this series for me. I already know that Fitz is one of the main characters in later books later on, and so I'm really excited to get into that. It's also really character heavy, really character driven, and really slow burn. So if you're the type of reader who's looking for more of an action driven, action plot sort of story, I don't think that this will satisfy that need, but the political intrigue in here, the drama of it all, let me just say. So with that being said, with all the non-spoilery stuff, if you're looking for a really well-crafted story with amazing, well-realized and rounded characters with perfection of writing, then I would definitely recommend this trilogy to you. Like, honestly, as a whole, one of the best fantasy series I've read out there. Even though I did give each book consecutively 4 stars, I still think, like, overall, it is one of the best and strongest fantasy trilogies I've ever read. If you haven't read the series or picked it up, please fucking do. This is the new series I want everyone to read in 2022, okay? Like, my influence now, my brands are these books. I am passing all the good vibes, all the good energy to you so that you can read this series. Please pick the series up, read it, and let me know. Tell me all about it. Tell me all your feels, because once you read it, you'll get it, okay? The girls that get it, and the girls that don't, sadly, don't. So I fucking loved this trilogy so much that I actually went ahead and got the next set of trilogy that happens afterwards in this world, Realm of the Elderlings. This is the first book in the Last Ship trilogy, and this one primarily follows a new set cast of characters, a new, like, different part of the world, and sort of like almost like a new entirely magic system. So I'm very curious to see how that all plays out and unfolds. I'm only like 200 pages in. It is that good and that different. Like, I was honestly expecting for me to be really hesitant and cautious going in because I was like, I'm sort of attached to all the characters that I read in the first trilogy to Fitz, you know, reading about from his POV, first perspective. However, in this one, everything is different. We are reading from so many different POVs in third person. Like, to give you a tease, it sort of follows like different sea serpents, pirates, and wizard wood. Wizard wood. Try saying that fast 3 times. Essentially is made up of like special magic wood that when a family member dies on it for 3 consecutive generations, the wood comes to life. So that's all I'm gonna say. Very promising, very excited to see what happens next. You can already clearly see that I am 100% invested into the series. And with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and dive into spoilers. Alright, so now we are diving into spoilers. Where do I even fucking start? Let's start with favorite characters, okay? Nightshade and the Fool, without a doubt. I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say that these 2 characters are perhaps one of the best of the entire trilogy. Nightshade, you already know, is the wolf that Fitz wanted to. And to me, he was great. He was amazing. And the Fool, I am in love with the Fool. There are so many mysterious attributes to him. Like, to me, he was the most sympathetic character. I know that a lot of people are divided on the last book. They either really hate it or love it. I mean, for me, the best book by far in the entire trilogy was Royal Assassin. This book completely destroyed me. That ending, like, it made me so fucking thankful that I had the 3rd book to go on, because I couldn't imagine waiting. It was just devastating overall, reading about what Fitz went through, what he endured, what all the characters, all these secondary characters that went through as well. It was just the feels. Like, he died, but they transferred sort of like his essence, his soul into Nightshade. This whole 2nd book was just a game changer for me in every sense. But this 3rd one, I know that there are many aspects in this book that I really enjoyed. However, there are some aspects that I didn't. One of them being traveling. I understand that in this fantasy setting, it was sort of appropriate how Fitz would travel through one place to another, you know, fulfilling his mission. I truly feel like 200 pages of this book could have been cut out, and it probably would have been stronger. There are so many characters in here that we meet. I don't know if we'll meet them later on in the book, or if there'll be more of an important significance about them later on. But there's so many characters we meet that we pass through and never again. I mean, overall, in of itself, it was really fascinating and really interesting reading about the different duchies and the different parts of the world that Fitz is in. You know, reading all about it from his perspective, about, you know, meeting new people, seeing new things, figuring it out, and figuring, no, not fingering, figuring. Did I say that right? I am figuring it out, not figuring. Just want to get that clear. Anyways, also the magic system in this book was so intriguing, but Robin Hobb, I don't know if she does this deliberately or not, but she barely explained how they sort of worked. I mean, we got to see more of the wits in the 3rd book, how that is sort of, you know, explained and all that. But I still wasn't truly satisfied, and I think that we'll get more sort of like in-depth of how it totally works. Like, all I got with the skill is that they only know how to use it to communicate with each other telepathically. That's pretty much it, right? There isn't like a skill where you can control the weather or anything like that. I'm really curious to see what she does with the wit, because she did explain a little bit of what the wit entails, you know, and the mythology behind it. But there wasn't really a full explanation or a scenario in which this took place. Like, it was just like, I guess, like a couple pages of explanation where Fitz meets another person like him, bonded to, I guess, a bear in this cottage living in the woods. I feel like the majority of the 3rd book, especially building up to this large epic battle, this big finale, I was sort of like, okay, this is interesting. I was sort of expecting like a bigger outcome, but I'm sort of at peace with how it sort of ended and how it sort of unraveled and unfolded. I think I was sort of expecting like a big showdown, you know, between the Raiders and King Verity as a dragon. And even though we did get to see small glimpses of that, it felt fitting to see that, you know, because we're with Fitz the entire time. We're not there at the actual battle. It made sense, and I'm okay with it. I am also okay with how it ended. I know that a lot of people did not feel right about its ending. I mean, knowing that he will appear later on in the future books, I was like, it didn't feel like an ending of conclusion to me, right? It didn't feel concrete. Like, if Robin Hobb didn't have any other books in the series and this was it, I would have probably felt different. I think I would have felt like maybe cheated, because that was it. There was nothing. Like, everything was so sad for him, you know? But with everything that I know, it'll be fine. Maybe that's one of the major influences as to why I'm okay with the ending of the series. Let's talk about Fitz for a second, because it was really interesting to me reading about him as a small child. He was cute and adorable. I wanted the best for him, okay? And reading about him as a teenager was really interesting to me, I think. The 2nd arc of this whole entire trilogy was the most intriguing for me to read about. And then moving on into the 3rd book, reading about him as a full-grown adult. Oh my god, it was so fucking frustrating to read from his POV because I feel like we're following a character who is not the smartest or the strongest, and that's okay, you know? He's not some Gary Stu. Fitz, honestly, as a child, I wanted to protect him, I wanted to give everything that was best for him, and then later, him growing up from pubescent to sort of like a moody teenager, I was like, alright, I sort of understand, I empathize because we all sort of make mistakes and said all sorts of things when we were teenagers, right? We grew out of it. However, him as an adult, I was like, you literally witnessed and you went through this whole entire fucking journey, right? He goes through Verity, and when Verity mentions or says certain things to him that have to deal with sort of like expanding or opening your mind, he was like,
no, I don't believe this.
I was like, do you not see what's happening right in front of you? You literally experienced all this shit. You literally talked to a fucking wolf. You died, right? And your essence and soul was put into the wolf. What more can you not believe at this point? I was literally so confounded to so many of the things that he would not like believe in. I was like, you are literally the most close-minded person I've ever read. Fitz, honestly, it was just, his whole arc was really tragic and I really felt for him. But literally in the third book, I was like, maybe it would have been better if you had just been with Nightshade, you know, forever. But obviously that didn't happen. Overall, I was just a little frustrated, but I still love him as a character. And deep down, I do understand his skepticism and why he does the things that he does. It was just sometimes really funny, I guess, of the things that he would do and say, because I was just like, the irony, you are literally contradicting yourself. Such a fucking hypocrite in so many levels, in so many ways. But other than that, he was still a lovable character. I am very interested to see what the future books hold as to the relationship with Fitz's new son. I don't know, like, that ending to me was a little abrupt. Like, I was a little confused at first as to whether that was his actual son or not, but Starling said he wasn't, like, she just found him as an orphan. So I am curious to see, like, their relationship. Also, one of the characters that I didn't really care for or about was Molly, like, or Starling. Honestly, I kind of wish sort of her female characters were more fleshed out in a way, because I feel like the majority of them were all revolving around the male characters and didn't really stood out to me or stood strong enough on their own, in my opinion. The only character that really stood out to me was probably Ketrican and Patience. That was pretty much it. And I did still want more from them. I still wanted more from Ketrican and everything. But other than that, I'm hoping that we have, you know, more fleshed out, well-rounded female characters in the later books. But I did really like Fitz's relationship with Chade and Burrage. Like, honestly, having two dads, hey, I mean, come on, who wouldn't want two daddies? All right, I'll stop. But I am very curious to see how their relationship in the future plays out, because Burrage still thinks that Fitz is dead. Chade finds that Fitz is still alive, right? And so how that dynamic will change with Burrage, and also fucking Molly. Oh my god, I fucking forgot that Burrage and Molly got together. That is the one thing that I was like, what the fuck? Like, I did not see any chemistry between Burrage and Molly at all. Like, I honestly thought he was old enough to be her dad, okay? Like, I understand the sort of companionship, the loneliness, but I was like, Burrage, stop. And then Molly, maybe she likes daddies too, just saying. I mean, it's just a weird, I guess, like, relationship, because Burrage was sort of a father figure to Fitz, but for him to end up with Molly as sort of like her companion was weird to me, because Molly was, you know, Fitz's love interest. You know, I'm just saying, maybe she's into daddies. Okay, I'll stop now. Okay, very curious to see how that relationship will play out in the future, and the people who think Fitz is dead, and how, you know, they'll react when they find him alive, and also sort of like a bigger explanation, a deep dive into sort of the more of the magic system and the dragons overall, the elderlings, if you will. I guess that, like, the last, I want to say 30%, 40% of the book was really intriguing to read about, with all these, like, different places that they could teleport to, people with the skill road, and the magic that they all could wield, you know? Really curious to see how that'll play out later in the future. I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I cannot believe I fucking forgot about Molly and Burrage. Like, what the fuck? Like, that was honestly one of the things that I did not see coming and am not here for. Because Burrage to me is like a father figure. And we're gonna stop talking about Burrage as a father figure and a daddy. We are gonna move on. I'll stop now, I promise. I am hoping to see how his relationship with Patience also, you know, broadens, because Patience sort of plays like a mother role figure to Fitz in the books as well. I guess that's it. I couldn't care less about Starling, or see how she could be sort of like a fit-in for Molly as a love interest, but we'll see. I am curious to see Fitz's relationship with the Fool. Like, honestly, for me, canonically, Fitz and the Fool are endgame, okay? And it's just literally the inner game, me wanting them to be together. I am also very curious to see sort of the backstory of the Fool as well, or if he has a name and not just the Fool. So if you do want to talk or discuss any theories, please make sure there's a spoiler warning so that you don't spoil other people who want to read this series as well. But yeah, that is pretty much it. All I have going for this trilogy. I'm also reading Ship of Magic right now, as well, as you know. So far, I'm actually loving this. It is so different, but also familiar at the same time. Learning about these different places, these different characters, it's sort of almost like a different magic. I want to say system, because we are already familiar, but new, I guess, new magic, I guess, newer things that have yet to be discovered and found. So, and already there are certain characters that stand out to me that I'm very interested to read more from, such as Wintro and Athlia. We'll see. I have the entire trilogy for this series, so very excited to read on, because I was literally about to skip the Live Ship Trader trilogy and just go straight onto the next trilogy regarding Fitz and the Fool, I believe. But so many people, so many of you guys were like, no, don't do that. Don't fucking skip. Read on to the next trilogy. You might be attached to Fitz and the characters in the world, but you'll also be attached to other characters in this world as well. And so far, you are fucking correct, because this book is fucking fantastic. So, alright, so with that being said, thank you so much for watching, guys. Please let me know down in the comments below what you guys think of this entire trilogy, if you have read the first Farseer trilogy, and what you guys think of the consecutive books beyond. If you literally leave any spoilers for me, I will fucking end it, okay? I kid you not, I'm dead serious. Please, for the love of God, do not give me any spoilers for any of the consecutive books later on. Just gonna leave it at that. But thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you all soon with a new video. And so he is sort of raised separately from, he is eventually trained to be he is essentially trained to be, and so throughout the course of this, why am I even doing this video? The Fool, to me, there were so many mysterious attributes about, what do you even want to say about the Fool? What I also really love about the